morning. The way the meeting is gonna go today is, the commission here will discuss the beacon first, then I'll entertain a motion from the commission. Then there will be public comment for just the motion. We've heard all the comments over the past, month or whatever for all the different, concerns of the airport, but this is just strictly for the beacon tonight. So I guess,
So I have a question. I think we need to make a decision on whether it's gonna be day and nighttime too. I think,
You can put that in your motion.
okay,
so, okay, so any of you guys wanna start with your thoughts or anything regarding the beacon?
I guess one of my thoughts is I'm happy to see that there's so many people involved in really paying attention to all this. And bringing that to our attention better and giving us more info than what we had. I really thank you all for that. And it's been a long road on this, so that's my thank you.
All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion.
you want me to make the motion? I'll make a motion that Riddick Field stays the same daytime and nighttime landing, with the beacon to only be on during an emergency landing at night, otherwise it's to be off.
I second it.
Public comment?
How long does the beacon stay on?
It depends
During
on,
emergency?
it depends. What's on
Depends on the
the
emergency?
It'll depend on the emergency, yes.
Right now, currently, it just turns on when there's a plane landing, correct? So will that come on for planes
The
landing?
beacon has been off since, the test, so,
During the past 20 years that I've lived across the street from it.
well, right.
It only lights up, the runway and all of that only lit up when a plane was landing. Is that how the beacon will work? For emergency landings?
Emergency landing,
Will
yes, it will
it turn on for regular landings also?
We have to probably further look into how we're gonna do that for turning it on.
I think
During
there's
an
something, a
emergency.
sensor in the plane or something that triggered,
Yeah,
okay.
so. Any public, yep, go ahead.
I'm Eric Anderson. I am one of the members of the Airport Advisory Board. I'm a pilot. I've been flying here in Montana for 26 years. And I can tell you a little bit about how the beacon actually works. Typically, a beacon's on from dusk to daylight. It's on all night long. And any of the airports that have that, they also have runway lighting. The runway lighting is typically activated by a pilot. If you're flying into an airport, typically you might activate when the GPS tells you that you're maybe 10 miles out. If you're having trouble finding exactly where it is and you haven't clicked on the lights, then you will be able to visualize a beacon that is running for that airport. And that'll give
That's
you,
the little green one that's on the ground now.
well, it probably died, I think, September 8th of 22 in a windstorm. It was on a pole. And that pole is kind of bent over. So anyway, the pilot can see the beacon, they can turn on the lights, and the beacon is always located there on the airfield. This new beacon that we have is something new that the FAA has started requiring in the last several years. It is a much brighter LED beacon. The lumens are substantially brighter than the old ones. And that's kind of where the biggest surprise with this beacon came in. The old beacons kind of look a little more like yard lights. And if you want to see what an old beacon looks like, you go down to Bowman Field in Anaconda. We still have the old beacons, look like two small headlights, you know, white and green, and they spin around there. I was at Bowman Field yesterday. I was also at, am I taking too long? Okay. I was also at Three Forks and looked at their beacon. Three Forks also has one of the old style beacons. That was the style of beacon that has been operating basically since the 80s here at Riddick Field. And it did run from dusk to dawn, 24 or not 24 hours a day, but during the nighttime hours. This new beacon is very bright, and there have been many airports that have had these installed, and there have been complaints. And certainly these are legitimate complaints that they're just incredibly bright. I spoke to an engineer today for one of the Montana engineering firms that has been in charge of some of these projects. They recently installed a beacon and they had the same problem with a lot of complaints from the community. This was in Townsend. Yesterday morning, I was in Townsend, the day before. I was in there about 6 o'clock in the morning, left Great Falls a little bit early so I could see their beacon in action. I went onto the airport property, stood underneath the beacon. I was there in the pilot's lounge and looked up at it. That beacon had baffles placed on it because, again, the beacon has beams that can be tipped up typically from 2 to 10 degrees, sometimes as high as 15 or 20. And even with it tipped up, it was just a huge wash of light. So a special baffle was created for those lights that directed up and decreased the wash to the sides. I have pictures that the engineer forwarded me today for these type of baffles, where we are now putting on all the beacons that they're installing of this new type. They had a similar thing in the town of Stanford. Stanford has a runway that's parallel to the highway and very close to the highway. It's a pretty small town there. But they do have night operations and a 24/7 beacon. That beacon was pretty much blinding the drivers on the highway. So they've installed baffles there also. The engineer, this firm, is also bidding a project in Polson, and it's going to include one of the new beacons. And with this new beacon, they do bid for these new baffles to be in place. Myself looking at the beacons or the baffles, and I have pictures of them. The only thing I would probably do different, they're kind of painted in a reflective white. I think if they were a matte black or a powder coat, you get even less kind of reflection. I've got videos of what the beacons look like standing right next to it, standing off a mile away, what the beacons are. And they're similar to the beacons that you see on other airports.
Okay, so here's the initial thing that we have decided. We are not going to try to be FAA compliant. We are going to keep our airport the way it is. The people have spoke, and so we can't really expand. And so what we've decided, we talked it over, we got research, and to keep the airport as it is right now with the beacon not on, only when it's needed in an emergency if the runway lights don't work. If that interferes with any kind of FFA or FAA compliance, we don't care. We're gonna be speaking with the airport board. I think get them on the agenda shortly to make it known that we are not gonna try to expand our little airport. Okay,
We're not,
Yes, in all due respect, if this is your first time here, this is our fourth meeting, and we've spent hours talking about this. And this gentleman here, it's a lot of repetition. As far as some of us have gone out and done actually some interviews with pilots at different airports. I spoke on that our last meeting, so it's kind of hard for all of us to sit here if this is your first time here, because we've come a long way since then. And if you've got any questions, you probably should ask them after the meeting, maybe, if you're concerned. So, I just wanted to mention that because we have spent.
yes, you got told.
Is there any other public comment in the crowd or? online?
I've just a couple.
Get up, state your
And I
name.
heard you and I.
Can you state your name, please?
Deborah.
Could you stand too, please? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry?
Could you stand, please?
No one else has to stand.
Well, I can't hear you.
My name's Deborah, and I was just wondering, what constitutes, an emergency, who designates an emergency night landing, and like how, like that night, the lighting for night emergency would be defined or designated, like who's saying it, and I do apologize, this is my first meeting, but I'm here as a person that lives here and I care.
Go ahead, Blaine.
So I agree that that needs put in the motion on who will decide the emergency, you know, who declares an emergency. I'd say, it should be multiple people.
Yeah.
Including commission chair, sheriff,
Forest Service.
ambulance, president, volunteer ambulance president, those three at least.
Yeah, and maybe Forest Service for wildfire season.
Yeah, they could work with, I'd say they work with the sheriff.
Okay.
You know, and so there's,
They do.
yeah, then, yeah.
Mainly it's gonna go through the sheriff if we talk to them, so. He'll be the one, cause they'll get the 911 called first before we ever hear anything. And they might have to make a call before they can even talk to us if they're trying to land, so. It's gonna be a hit and miss.
The other change I would add is, and put in the motion, just, some advice on that to, talk about the runway lights as well in your motion, because I think that, and may want to take public comment on runway lights issue. So
Didn't I address the runway
I
light?
think you said beacon, but
You know,
Currently, like I said, I live right across the street from it. Currently, the runway lights are only on a few minutes after a plane lands, a few minutes before a plane
Right.
begins, and we haven't had anything. I mean, I think we've kind of got used to the little green bulb every once in a while going around. But it's never on long enough. The lights are not on all day long. I was actually, when I was at the sheriff's office, reported when it was on all day long, I think a few years, 6, 7 years back, when they were on all the time, there was some type of sensor that was keeping them on all day long. But even living across the street, the runway lights, when planes land and take off, it's never been a hindrance to us. But a beacon, especially an LED beacon, is kind of a completely different story.
Okay. What did I say?
the way I heard it, you just
Okay.
mentioned the beacon, so I
Okay,
think.
so night landing with the runway lights, right? And if the beacon is needed in an emergency,
But runway and beacon in emergency,
in
is
emergency.
what you're saying?
So if the beacon would
Hold
come
on, hold on. Alright, Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. My name is Brad Schuster. I'm the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association Northwest Mountain Region Manager, and I'm among 7 states. Montana is one of my states. I represent about 2,000 of our members there, but I represent about 31,000 throughout my 7-state region here in the Northwest Mountain Region. Commissioners and the public here in attendance appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm a little bit confused. I'm directing a question to the commissioners. I think I heard one thing, which was the motion. The motion is, if passed, resume operation of the beacon. And then I heard just a few minutes ago that we're only going to operate it. We've already made the decision to operate it under emergency conditions. Can you revisit the motion really quickly to make sure my comments are
Yeah.
have proper context?
So the motion was that the airport is gonna run forward as is, as it has been for the last so many years. And that the beacon will only be used in emergency circumstances.
Okay, so it's your community, it's your community airport. Hopefully, Mr. Jones has spoken to you, and you guys and the commissioners have spoken to FAA authorities on the financial ramifications of this. In my experience, in fact, in my research, there has never been a case of a public use airport that has declined to use its beacon full time as expected for an airport that has, as the first speaker mentioned, runway lights. That's just the requirement. The sponsor, that's the county, Granite County, has taken funds. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know from the FAA. I'm not going to speak for the FAA other than to let you know that there are serious financial repercussions beyond the light itself. From a pilot safety perspective, as a pilot of over 35 years and an active CFI flight instructor, I can tell you that not, being flying around and students get lost at night, especially in vast open spaces like there in Montana, and to see a airport on your chart and not to see the light, you've just created an emergency. I don't even know what it means for emergency use only, special use only, but I just want to say that this has never been done before, and that the county is going to have to pick up all of the future maintenance because it's unlikely the state or the federal government is going to pick up your what they call AIP, your airport infrastructure program funding. So that's a significant impact to you in the audience as taxpayers there in the county. That's a bill, that's a check that you guys are gonna have to be willing to write. What I encourage, and am encouraged by what the sponsor and Mr. Jones have already done by turning over every stone for mitigating the impacts of that correctly operating rotating beacon by baffles and adjusting the angles and everything. And I'd say on the community side, when you move next to an airport, there's going to be airplane noise, there's going to be lighting, and even if it wasn't there when you showed up, that's a very likely outcome. And what I'd implore the community consider is, hey, you know what? They've come a long way with the lighting to mitigate the impacts to us in the surrounding area. Maybe we could consider blackout curtains at night, for that area. I mean, you don't have a view anyway at that point. I mean, just being very candid here. But bottom line is that it's safety. It's a huge financial burden that I just hope the commission dives deep into what the financial impacts of potentially continuing on with a with a not fully operational beacon. That's all I
All
have,
right.
but I am available for questions if there's anything else.
Okay, thank you,
You bet.
Derek.
So,
Go ahead, can you state your name,
If
please?
the runway lights are working, we don't need to have the beacon on. So the beacon would only be used for emergencies, but the runway lights could be on because they don't really bother anything. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, so like the way the airport's been running right now before the beacon was replaced is how it's gonna keep running. So if there is a nighttime flight or whatever that is familiar with the airport and can click on the lights to turn it on, they can still land, but we're not gonna have the beacon running 24/7 or dusk till dawn.
Blaine has.
Go ahead. You
oh, I was just gonna say, I think, the commission realizes that issue with no longer getting FAA funding, correct? So
Right.
they're making on that. The way I heard the motion was, they didn't say as is in the motion, you said continue on with daytime, nighttime use with the beacon only used in emergencies. And that would be as declared. And so I think the motion does need some
clarification.
Greg Barr. I'm a pilot. I was a previous manager of Bowman Field Airport in Anaconda for almost 9 years. My concern that I'm hearing is only in an emergency. So when you're in an airplane and you're flying over Phillipsburg and you have an engine out or whatever, the last thing you're going to be thinking about is trying to figure out how to get the beacon to come on. Granted, you click your mic and the runway lights will come on and hopefully you can see it then, but the beacon is there to find an airport 9 times out of 10 more for an emergency than not. I understand where you're coming from. With my experience in the past with managing the airport in Anaconda and dealing with the FAA and the state for funding, it would be best, I think, if you were to not have the beacon and consider it a day use on the airport. And then the lights go away, the beacon goes away, and it's a day use on the airport. And that will eliminate the problems that, and I might mention that, yes, this is my first meeting, but I've been following this extremely hard. I'm also a town councilman. So I was asked to come today, which I was coming anyway. So, I mean, I understand all the concerns of everybody. I live a quarter mile from the airport, but I have a hump between my house and the airport. So all I see is the glow. I don't see the direct light. The beacon in Anaconda was replaced 3 years ago, and it is LED, but it's 65 feet off the ground too, and there's no population around that it affects. So, just consider, and like the gentleman said on the computer, funding is gonna go away. I understand. I love flying into Phillipsburg Airport. It's a great little airport.
We're not funded by the FAA,
No, you're not, but you.
and we don't plan on being.
Okay, yeah, and that's fine. I mean, however you choose.
And the one thing, if I may say, is the airport has had daytime and nighttime landing since the airport's been there. And that's a safety thing. If we're wrong in only turning the beacon on during emergencies, or if it needs to be turned on when someone needs to land, it's only gonna be on for that person to land and then off. We can work around that. But for the safety reason, for the fact that it is a daytime and nighttime airport right now, and if someone needed to land, they could, because we have the capabilities.
Sure. So would it be like a mic click, like you turn on the runway light?
Yeah,
and also turn
where
the beacon?
we visited with the sheriff and figured something out. If they had to go turn the beacon on, they could go turn the beacon on. And they said that we could figure something out.
And like I said, when I began talking, my biggest concern would be in an emergency, last thing you're gonna do is think to call the sheriff. Hey,
And
you run down and turn the
we
beacon
may
on.
be,
That's-
we may be wrong in saying just an emergency, it just nighttime landing. There's very rarely nighttime landings, but if they need the beacon.
There's been discussions on the pilots controlling that as well. But yeah, I guess I encourage you to take public comment from other people on that issue.
Go ahead, Derek.
Hi, Derek Campbell. Yeah, so I appreciate the input we've heard so far. I think a couple things. The motion being used just for emergent or the beacon just being used for emergency, I believe is sufficient. And the reason I think that, number one, in speaking with the airport manager, the amount of planes that fly over our airport or near our airport at night that are small enough to land at our airport is fairly limited. We don't have a ton of air traffic going over us that could actually land at our airport, even if it were an emergency at night. The only other thing I would say is it might make sense. Hold on, kiddo. You look great, kid. Sorry. Um, the only other thing I would say is it might make sense to have something in there if there were inclement weather, if there were fog, or for the daytime use. I think the last gentleman who spoke mentioned it might be confusing to have the beacon not be operational, but the runway lights on the PCL system. And I think he suggested making it just daytime use at that point to reduce that confusion. I don't know, that there's some technical issues there maybe on how to do that. But I think having the option to turn it on should we need it. Hold on, kiddo. Sorry. Having the option to turn it on should we need it, leaves it the way it is at this point and the way it's been for years. At this point, it's been down for 2 years, and gives us the flexibility in an emergency to use it as needed. And I think the motion is pretty good, other than working out the technicalities on it.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
So my name's Mark. I'm just thinking that maybe there needs to be some clarification on what an emergency is. When I'm listening to you, it sounds like the sheriff can declare an emergency. I don't believe that, at least pilot's input is important, but I think it's more of us thinking of the town has an emergency. We need we need planes to land, we need someone to get out for medical, we need firefighters to show up. It's not about necessarily an engine going out. It's about our town needs help. Then the beacon turns on.
Thanks.
Justine Richmond, can you please restate the motion? I think we're kind of getting off.
Yeah,
Confused about what exactly it is that you guys are doing.
Yep. We're gonna clarify the motion. Well, entertain clarification.
Clarification, okay. Wayne, how do I clarify? I make a motion, the airport Riddick Field is to stay as is with daytime and nighttime landing, with using the runway lights and the beacon only for nighttime driving. Landing.
Emergency.
In an emergency.
Well, they're saying the emergency, how can they declare it an emergency? I think if the beacon light can go on so that they can see if they needed it. Like what he was saying, you need to have the beacon to find the airport, so it is actually needed. And usually if the emergency landing thing, I don't know. Do you see where I'm coming from?
The runway lights are controlled by PCL. The pilots can turn on currently, so they can operate those at night if they're coming in. The beacon is not operated on PCL, so the beacon would stay off if somebody just comes in. If there is an emergency, the town of Phillipsburg will turn the beacon on in that emergency situation.
Well, it wouldn't be the town.
Or the sheriff's
Yeah.
office, the volunteer fire department, emergency service.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it needs to be in the discretion of the sheriff, Phillipsburg Ambulance, County Commission Chair. And there is a legal definition of emergency, but you know it when you see it, and so you want those people the ones that make the quick decision.
Everybody, Susie Mullen,
Oh,
everybody in this room, if you want, through my investigations, I'm not a pilot to let the new people know this. But I've talked to several pilots and engineers and managers at Anaconda Airport and also the Deer Lodge Airport. We could go online and the pilots can do this too. They can map out anywhere they want to go and it shows all the airports. It gives the codes. Ours is 122.9 and you tap it 3 times. And if there's a radio sending, and it goes to the sheriff's office and it goes to the hospital for emergencies. And every airport has their own code and it actually says that on, you can look it up in your phone. So most pilots that are flying will plan out where they're going and make sure, possibly where all these airports are. If it's a real emergency, from what the engineers have told me in Anaconda and Deer Lodge, is if we had a big emergency here, they would tell them to go to Anaconda or Deer Lodge. They wouldn't even want to stop here. That's what they told me. So, and by the way, Anaconda, the engineer there, Monty, he told me that, he said that they only run their beacon during bad weather. If it's good weather during the day, they don't run their beacon.
Yeah.
And if there was an emergency, they do too.
Yep.
But they don't run their beacon during the day at all. And they have 9,000 population and we have 910.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Well, just a question.
State your name.
Yeah, Wendy Vaughn. From what I've heard on radios and stuff before, usually if there's some sort of emergency, a pilot is on the radio declaring mayday, mayday. And I assume that's picked up on 911.
And it calls us immediately.
Yeah, and so the sheriff knows right away there's a pilot that has a problem. And they can go in there. For those of you that don't know this, Wendy and I are on search and rescue. I was on the ambulance for a long time. And Dee has been a dispatcher at the sheriff's office. So we kind of know a little bit about the emergencies in this area and how it works. And even the pilots during the day, they contact lots of times, if there's something wrong, they'll contact the sheriff's office or the hospital through our code. So
There was times that we have actually had FAA call us to say the runway lights were unable to be turned on by the pilot for whatever reason. And just click the button 3 times up at the sheriff's office, pops everything on until there was an issue with the actual lights. But anytime, I can only remember 2 in 17 years. But as soon as they received any type of emergency message from the pilots, the sheriff's office was immediately notified of an emergency.
I think one of the things they're saying here, the pilots are saying though, if it's allow for nighttime landing without the beacon, you've got a huge liability exposure. So I think that's why I think some of these people are saying daytime only, is to eliminate that liability. Is that what we're saying, Eric?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wayne, if I can elaborate on that, Jack Foster. So you're exactly right. That's what the majority of the county wants, is daytime only. And according to numbers by Donovan Jones, the airport board manager, he has stated that there's probably 2 or 3 nighttime flights a year. So for 2 or 3 people not being able to land at night and having to modify their flight plans and land during the day, I think that's a pretty good trade-off to have daytime only and not allow those 2 or 3 planes to land at night. But that's directly from our airport board manager.
Back there.
Kip, I'm a pilot also. Is there a way of running that beacon, say it becomes a daytime only airport? Is there a way of running that beacon when the vision is less than 10 miles or 8 miles or 7 mile visibility? That beacon will come on automatically and have it going during the daytime when visibility is so down?
I mean, I think bad weather would classify as an emergency. I believe. One thing I think of is like, during fire season where the smoke is so thick or something like that, and they're landing in and out all the time, refueling or getting more chemical or whatever, water, but that'd be emergency case scenario there where the beacon would be turned on.
The issue there though is getting notice to the people that turn it on.
Right. All right, just pick one. Go ahead, William. Go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you. I've been interested in this issue for sure. I'm a property owner that's adversely affected by what would happen with the beacon. I've been contacted by people who own property adjacent to mine about this issue, and they're very much concerned about it from a lot of different angles. Um, from my perspective, the simplest solution would be to, declare the airport to be a day use only. And if there is need for access to airport closer by or whatever, uh, I do remember when the airport was, there was a major effort to expand the airport. Um, and that was met with a lot of resistance from the northern end of the valley, and that the airport outside of Drummond access was easier and so on and so forth. So that expansion didn't happen because of that opposition. And I am curious now as to whether the airport in Drummond has a beacon similar to the one that is now being or has been installed in Phillipsburg. But again, I guess in summation, I would throw my support behind the day use only. I think it's simpler.
All right, thanks, Jerry. Go ahead, Elena.
Thank you, Elena Gagliano, Phillipsburg. It's kind of confusing listening, especially when you say what the motion is. It seems like every time someone asks for clarification what the motion is, it's a different version. Don't you have it written, pre-written what the motion is?
No, it wasn't pre-written.
I'm sorry?
Do you have it written? Is it written? Pre-written.
All right, thank you. William? All right. Any other public comment?
Joey Jensen, I would like to see the motion tabled until you can research more on what types of beacons there are that may not interfere with people's lives here. I am in aircraft quite often myself. I don't fly, but I also would like strip to be able to land on whenever I need to land on one. So if you could find out what constitutes an emergency and what kind of beacons can be there, how long they'll be on, how long they'll be off. I think that research would go a long way in helping define things a little bit better here.
Hi, Jen Walters. I do not want to see this motion tabled for now. As Susie pointed out, this is at least our fourth community meeting. A lot of us have been doing a lot of research on the back end and trying to figure out different solutions and other options.
Of the Western Hemisphere. Now,
Sorry.
That's okay. We've also asked Donovan Jones on more than one occasion to give us some alternative options and come up with some different solutions, and he's refused. So this has been going on for months. I realize Brad from the Aeronautics Division doesn't live here. Eric doesn't live here. Some of you who don't live in the vicinity of the airport have no idea how disruptive this beacon is. And I do not, personally, I don't want inexperienced hobby pilots flying over my house at night. Like every day on the news, we're seeing reports of planes crashing into houses, onto highways. This beacon blinds people driving down Highway 1. So I think we've talked about this long enough. I appreciate the commissioners and Blaine and everyone taking time to consider all of the information everyone has given us so far and coming up with this motion. And I think most of us from the first meeting, the second meeting, the third, and now this one are in agreement with that motion for it to be a daytime use only airport.
Yeah, my advice, if you're gonna do this, is to do daytime only. It's too large of liability exposure to have nighttime. If someone's having an emergency, they're gonna use their pilot control and land on there. So
I agree with that.
if you're not understanding you're not gonna they no longer accept FAA or receive FAA funding.
So say that again about the FAA funding. We're not even gonna.
You're not required to do, those regulations under that, that's my advice to you, because, if you're gonna do it, I would do it daytime only.
I agree with the daytime only also.
Let's get a motion made here.
Yeah, we've had plenty of
We can
public.
go over and over and over, like she said, it's.
Just do daytime.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to make Riddick Field daytime use only. Would there be a condition that could possibly in an emergency land at night?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think that's,
that
should be part of your motion.
Put that in it? Would that work?
I would do that.
Yeah, I think we have to, just to cover.
As determined by Granite County Commission Chair, Granite County Sheriff, or head of the Phillipsburg Volunteer Ambulance Association.
Okay, did I say that right?
Say it one more time.
Okay, do it one more time. I make a motion for Riddick Field to be daytime use only unless there is an emergency where a plane needs to land at night,
I would just say emergency.
or emergency landing at night.
I second it.
And then the beacon would only come on while it's landing.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried and passed.
Okay.
Alright, with that, meeting adjourned.
I see.
Yeah.